All right, it looks like they're done. Unless they're going to pass the torch to somebody else. I'm sorry, guys. We missed the live Senate to vote on $2 trillion coronavirus bill. We might have missed the whole thing. I was watching it earlier this morning. I listened to Chuck Schumer speak, so you guys didn't have to. Well, here, let's see what the Guardian's saying.
Last year has now spread across the globe. The Chinese Communist Party deceived the world, even their own people, and unleashed the worst pandemic in a century on us all. Now it falls to us to defeat it. Here at home,
wow.
Strange and unsettling hush has fallen over much.
Starting out with a little xenophobia. That's how you ease in Americans' politics. Start with a little bit of xenophobia.
To come. In New York, Seattle, New Orleans, and elsewhere, preparation for the virus has ended. The virus has arrived in force. The urgent battle to suppress it has begun. In emergency rooms and ICUs, courageous doctors and nurses are already locked in a battle to save the lives of their patients. Protective gear is in short supply, but their regard for safety and even family comes second to their duty.
Yeah, why is it in short supply? Why don't we talk about that?
Run thing in those cities as they struggle to keep their hospitals open and functioning. But make no mistake, the China virus will spare.
Oh my God, he's calling it the China virus. He's calling it the China virus. And you can tell he's reading all of this for the first time. By the way, I'm not even sure who this guy is. He does not give a shit about anything he's saying.
Emergency legislation for our nation.
You're getting $1,200 one time.
Massive infusion of funds to our healthcare system. But this legislation isn't about stimulus.
What's it about then?
Survival.
Okay.
With this legislation behind us, Americans are beginning to ask, what's next?
Where do they find these people?
Yes, the virus is testing us already. And it has already touched most of us by closing our churches, shuttering our businesses, threatening the jobs and retirement savings of millions of Americans.
That's what I've been thinking too. I can't go to church. That's the most important thing. Churches, that's what he brings up first. He got this guy. Wow. No, I'm not sure which member of Senate this is, just looking at his face. I'm assuming he's a Republican. I mean, just based on the stuff he's saying, he's calling it the China virus. Opening up with that xenophobia and hatred of the other. That's how we're going to get through a pandemic. All right, let's see a little bit more of what.
Lives. It's only natural that so many are wondering anxiously when and how this unprecedented crisis will end. And when it ends, will their jobs still be there? How will they put food on the table? How will they pay the bill?
So I used to teach public speaking. This dude reading way too much. He should have put a little more effort memorizing his spiel. He should have put a little more effort on eye contact. He should put a little more effort on just having note cards instead of just straight up reading it point blank. All right, here he goes.
Americans want to know the plan so they can do their part. More fundamentally, they want to know that there is a plan. Upended routines combined with worry
spoiler alert, there is no plan
about the future naturally breeds frustration. We are citizens, after all, not merely passive carriers of a deadly pathogen.
He got that. That was a mouthful. He got that out.
Argument that Americans can't wait any longer. That we ought to open back up and take our chances with this virus.
Yes, that is what some idiots are saying. That's true. He's like, let's take a moment. I opened up with some xenophobia. Now I got to take a minute to see what the true morons of the country are saying. Now, some morons are saying we should just open up the economy. I mean, remember, Lieutenant Governor Jeff, I'm willing to die for capitalism. Let's send out our elderly to die to stimulate the stock market. All right, so let's see what he has to say.
After all, we can't stay inside forever.
Brilliant insight.
We can't, as the saying goes, let the cure be worse than the disease.
So people have been saying that the past couple of days. It makes no, like, what the hell are they talking about? We can't take precautionary measures. We can't let the cure be worse than the. Nobody knows that means nothing. By the way, that means like that's the freedom fries of this pandemic. It means absolutely nothing. We can't let the cure be worse than the. Anyway.
The urgency to stave off economic collapse is, of course, understandable. And it's tempting.
No, it's not, because there's no reason for economic collapse. There's no reason for it. None whatsoever. None whatsoever. We can get through this.
To think that we face a simple choice between shutting down to fight the virus and opening up to save the economy.
That's not a choice. Yeah, that's a false, that's just a false equivalency. It's not it's shutting down to save our lives. It's shutting down for the healthy well-being of people, and we can keep the economy afloat. Why? Because we make our own currency. This is a false, and I get it. We can't shut down forever. No one's suggesting that. But we can do what we need to do to reverse this thing and beat this thing. And we can keep ourselves afloat in the meantime if we actually had a government that was acting on behalf of the people and not on behalf of corporations and shareholders. But they're acting on behalf of corporations and shareholders. And what do those people want? They want all the money for themselves. And they want you to go back to work to help their wheel keep a turning. And they don't. So this whole thing about saving the economy, it's a bunch of freaking nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. There's no reason why we can't have a social safety net to keep people afloat until this thing is over. This guy is bringing about a false equivalency. It's, all right, I'm done with this guy. Let's see what Fox Business is saying.
Economy isn't seized up.
Oh, same. All right, so they're all on the same. They're all on the same wavelength here. It's still this guy.
Virus. So an immediate reopening without the resources in place to fight the virus isn't an option. Our hospitals would be overwhelmed. Our brave doctors and nurses would succumb to the illness. Our businesses would keep their doors closed or would quickly close their doors again as workers and customers stayed away.
This guy still has yet to make a point. He still has yet. All he has done so far is called it the China virus. Spreading that xenophobia, baby. All he has done so far is babble on about how the people with the dumbest ideas are actually wrong. And then he's drawn this false equivalency that it's like, well, we either have to protect our lives or we have to protect our economy. That's ridiculous. By the way, why do we even have we have an economy for our lives? At the end of the day, humanity is what's most important. Our species existing and seeking a quality of life is what is most important, not what shareholders at Wall Street get. Not this, not a number that represents a gross domestic product or represents, the output of workers. At the end of the day, it's are people able to survive and have a decent quality of life? That's it. At the end of the day, that's all we need. So if we need to, have some social safety in the meantime, because we can't work, we're not able to work. So we need to sustain ourselves and the federal government needs to step in. That's just what happens. The economy's not going to, quote, collapse. It's not going to happen that way. It's just going to kind of stay afloat and then kick back in. That's it. No one wants to stay indoors forever. This guy's in.
The supposed choice between saving the economy and fighting the virus turns out not to be much of a choice at all.
Because it's just nonsense.
We can't yet stop the strong.
It's a bullshit talking point.
Because we have no better option in the short run. But neither can we continue them forever. The American people can only hold out for so long. So we must come up with a better plan.
By the way, this is
fast.
This guy has been talking about nothing for a while. It's Tom Cotton, excuse me. I went to say Tom Cotton from Arkansas. That's what I went to. So Tom Cotton from Arkansas. That's the senator who is speaking now. And he's out in Arkansas. And so far, he said absolutely nothing. Let's see if he actually says something.
That plan starts with this big pause as we protect ourselves and each other. We simply don't have the resources today to fight any other way. But it won't end with this approach. We must use the precious days and weeks ahead to lay the groundwork for a new strategy.
You know, once again, I used to teach public speaking at a community college, and sometimes there would be students that they kind of were underprepared on their topic, and they needed to fill a certain time allotment, and they did not have anything to fill that time allotment with, and I could tell. And that's this dude. By the way, he has nothing to say, and he's just filling his time with words. But this is what's going on right now. This is what our Senate's doing in real time. This is our Senate. Here's the plan they came up with. A plan that, once again, if you're just tuning in, you get one-time payment of $1,200. They did expand people who can apply for unemployment insurance to include freelancers. That's something new. Billions are given to corporations. There's small business loans for small businesses, and these are just loans. And that's it. No rent freeze, no mortgage freeze, no utility freeze, no student debt relief, nothing. Here's $1,200. You're on your own. That's what this stimulus package is. And Democrats and Republicans are proud of it. Who really wins here? The corporations and the banks. The banks who have already gotten trillions, by the way. They're making a big deal that this is a $2 trillion stimulus package. The banks have already gotten multiple payments of $1.5 trillion. That's what the banks have already gotten. All right, let's see Tom Cotton babble on about nothing more. This is our Senate. This is our Senate. That's incredibly useful. So useful that we have a Senate, by the way. So freaking useful.
Virus, a strategy that will allow all of us to gradually get back to work. For that to happen, we'll need to.
Did you hear someone cough? Did you hear someone just coughed really loud? He's babbling on about nothing. Someone just coughed really loud. Anyway, I thought that was kind of
rapidly test for the virus, as they have in South Korea. So we have a sense of where the virus is and where we must keep it contained. Already, America's public laboratories and companies are rising to the challenge, processing tens of thousands of tests. But our ability to test must grow even faster, and it is. We'll need masks too, billions of them. And we'll need local personnel trained and prepared to do widespread contact tracing for those who test positive. We'll have to develop procedures for strict quarantines of those who test positive or those who've been exposed to the virus.
He's now in the no shit Sherlock portion of his speech.
With zero tolerance.
Someone in the chat said, let's stop talking and pass a bill already.
For breaking quarantine and endangering our fellow citizens.
This is our Senate. This is what...
Once these elements are in place and the first wave of this virus has passed, then we'll be prepared to reopen our cities and communities while remaining vigilant about new outbreaks. These preparations will ensure we're ready to sustain our way of life until our scientists can create what we so desperately need: therapeutic drugs and, ultimately, a vaccine. A vaccine may take a year or more before it's available. But these other intermediate precautions...
This is all stuff we've known for weeks. It's all stuff. It might take a year or more for the vaccine. Yeah, we know. We know. Despite what Donald Trump has said multiple times, we know this. We know this, Tom Cotton. This is our Senate, by the way. This is what they're doing right now.
Must go into effect much, much faster. America must indeed reopen. When we do,
here you go.
Decisions must be based on local conditions, not an arbitrary nationwide timeline. Our governors and mayors understand their local conditions. They can make gradual, rolling, calibrated decisions in a way that is responsible when the tools to effectively fight this virus are ready and available. What I've outlined may seem like a daunting, even an impossible challenge. But our nation has overcome far greater challenges before. Already, America is rising to take on the China virus. The giant of American industry is awakening, retooling our factories to...
All right, new drinking game, because honestly, that's the most productive thing we could do right now. Every time he calls it the China virus, take a sip of whatever it is, whether it's your morning water, your morning coffee, your morning juice, whatever it may be. Whatever it may be. No judgment here. I got a water and a coffee going. I'm doing a water-coffee combo. Anyway, this guy, yeah, all right.
Join this fight, just as we did during World War II. Never bet against America's workers
Jesus.
and American ingenuity.
Never bet against America's workers. We're not betting against them. We have so much confidence in the American worker, we're not going to do jack shit to help them.
And all across this country, Americans are springing into action. We know the vital role our doctors and nurses will play in the coming months, alongside our first responders, our factory workers and farmers, our grocers, and on down the list. Ask yourself now, how can you help? Can you keep your distance from those most at risk, realizing that the China virus preys on our most earnest desires for society and companionship? Can you offer your charity to a friend in need? Can you pick up groceries for your elderly neighbor? Can you keep your workers on payroll and benefits just a little longer till...
Can you share your Netflix password with somebody in need?
Till our legislation kicks in? Can you postpone your tenant's rent for a month? Can you pray for deliverance?
Why don't you make the... Dude! Why don't you include a rent freeze? How about we get a rent freeze and a mortgage freeze? How about we get that? He made a polite plea. Landlords, could you maybe you could help out a little bit? You can't evict people until the end of April. You can't do that. All right, this is, what a waste all of this is.
Of our nation and the world. These are just a few of the things we must do as a country to make reopening possible and life bearable in the months ahead. We're all in this together, so we'll need to have each other's best interests at heart.
Especially the corporations. We really need to have their best interest at heart.
Many years of comfort and ease have perhaps conditioned us to ask only what we're free to do, not what we're called to do. But the old disciplines of peril,
what a bunch of bullshit,
threaten to return. We'll need old notions of duty to maintain order in the face of them. The darkest days of this crisis are, in all likelihood, still ahead of us. Let us face up to them bravely. Let us acknowledge the troubles ahead, and let us devote our whole energy to winning this battle quickly, so that the normal life of our nation can resume. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Okay, I honestly don't think I can do any more of this. I mean, that's... Do you need to see any more? I mean, I feel like that's enough. What a painful waste of time all of that was. That was completely and utterly pointless. He gave nothing in terms of solutions. He gave nothing in terms... And again, he just happened to be the guy who was on when we went over to it. This is happening in real time, unless, of course, you're listening to the podcast later, then this is not happening in real time anymore. That was Tom Cotton from Arkansas talking about absolutely nothing. What's going on in this bill? Again, you get $1,200 one time if you make $75K or under. One-time payment, that's it. No rent freeze, no mortgage freeze, no student debt relief, no utility assistance, nothing like that. They are going to expand unemployment insurance. And if you're a freelancer or self-employed, you are going to be able to apply. As far as the restrictions there, as far as the details there, that's what we're waiting on. We don't know any of that yet, but they are going to expand that. That's thanks to Bernie Sanders, by the way, which is a good thing. And the corporations get billions. Small businesses will be able to get some loans. That's it. And then you have to listen to these senators talk about absolutely nothing. babble on and on about, oh, the economy collapse versus saving our lives, as if that's the option, as if that's what's at stake. It isn't. Meanwhile, they're giving trillions to the banks. They're bailing out industry after industry, just handing the money, and they're not giving us anything. And then they're going to bullshit you for a while. They're just going to, that guy talked about absolutely nothing. So there you go. That's your Senate hard at work. That's what your Senate's doing for you.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and